Hello everyone. You'll have to ignore that I look a bit shiny and a bit like Rudolph at the moment with my red nose. It's very warm here today and my hay fever has gone through the roof, so I've spent the whole day sneezing. So I've just taken another spoonful of honey and I'm hoping that I don't sneeze throughout this video so I can actually get it filmed. But there are worse problems in the world than my hay fever suffering. Anyway, I asked in my most recent video for video ideas that were not unboxings, because I said to you, like, I want to do more stuff than just unboxings. And someone was like, talk about your favourite books. And I'm like, I can do that. I have a lot of favourite books. I talk a lot all day, every day. Let's combine the two together and talk about my favourite books in a video, which is what we're going to do today. Now, I'm going to just explain. Oh god, why have I made this confusing already? So you know when you have like your favourite books, when someone says what's your favourite books, you're like these ones, and then you have books that you're like, oh, this is one of my favourite books, but it's not like your favourite books, it's just like one of your favourite comfort read books. Does anyone else get that? Is that just me? Does that make sense? Probably not. Anyway, so I'm going to do two videos. I'm going to do this video, which is my favourite books in general. Like, these are like, if you say to me, what are my favourite books? These are what I will say. And then I'm going to do another video, which is my favourite comfort read books, which I'm like, this is one of my favourite books, but it's not one of my favourite books. Do you know what I mean? I expect that no one has any idea what the hell I'm talking about, but it makes sense to me, and that's good enough for me. If it does make sense, please tell me so that I feel validated. I'm also going to do a separate video entirely on my favourite book series, because I was going to include a book series in this video where, if you know me, you know I've not shut off about it since I read it for the first time this year. And I literally will not talk about anything else but that. I'll be like, have you read this book yet? This book's really good. Hey guys, I read this book in January and I've not stopped talking about it since. Yeah, so I was going to include that. But it's a book series, and I was like, well, if I include that series, I've got to include this series, and if I include this series, then that series should also be included. And I was like, that's just a whole other video. So I'll probably do another video on my favourite book series alone, because I want to talk about a certain book series some more. If you've followed my Instagram, you'll know what book series I'm on about, and you'll want me to stop talking about it, because I can't stop talking about it. Anyway, that is far too long of an intro. I wonder if the whole thing will actually make it into the video. We'll find out. Anyway, let's get to the books, which is why we're all here. The first book is a Marcus Zusak book, and that is The Messenger / I Am the Messenger. This is an Australian copy of the book, so I don't actually know what the UK title or cover looks like, but this is The Messenger / I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zusak. This is a book about someone called Ed, who is at a bank robbery, and he stops the bank robbery happening. And then in the post he starts receiving like playing cards telling him to go and do things or carry out tasks or pass a message on to someone. And so he's carrying out these tasks that he's being told to do through these playing cards, but he doesn't know why he's been selected to do that. And he doesn't know who is sending the cards. And so it's kind of like his journey as he carries out these things that he's told to do. But he's also finding out stuff about himself along the way. And the whole time there's this question of like, who is asking me to do this and why are they asking me to do this? Marcus Zusak is my favourite author of all time, because his storytelling and his writing is incomparable. Like, he writes stories in such a unique way that I've never read a book that's matched up to it. The characters and his books are both so beautifully written. His characters have so much depth to them. They're written in such a complex way that you're always learning new things about the characters as you read, even to the very last page. You feel like you're on the journey the character is with them. I just feel like, especially with Marcus Zusak, where I've read his books so many times, every time I reread his books, I still learn something new. So like, I think I've read The Book Thief like 4 times. It's coming up. I think I've read The Book Thief like 4 times now, and every time I read it, I still get something new out of it. And I've read this book twice now, and I get the same experience. Like, every time I read it, I'm like, oh, I've never thought of that before. The thing about The Messenger, I think, is that this is a book that really hammers home the point to me that I believe that everything genuinely does happen for a reason. I think The Messenger tells a story of how ordinary people doing ordinary things can cause such an impact, more of an impact than we realise. Like, some of the stuff that Ed is told to do with the cards is really quite small, but the impact it has is huge. And I think that's a really important message for the book to have. Like, ordinary people doing ordinary things can make a big change, can make a big impact. So, number 1, The Messenger. Definitely recommend that. Book 2 is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is a book about circus that shows up with zero warning, no announcements. It's just one day it's there, and it only opens at night, and if you miss it, you wake up and it's just gone like that. And the circus, spoilers, is magic. Not in a corny like abracadabra magic way, but like beautiful escapism magic. Along the storyline of the circus, just, you know, being there is also a competition between two young magicians, Cecilia and Marco. Now, they've been trained for this since they were kids, and they're carrying out this competition throughout their years of growing up, and what they don't realise is at the end of the competition, only one of them will be left standing. This book is basically a combination of the circus and the competition as like one storyline. What I just love about this book is it's so detailed, it's so beautifully written, the world building is fantastic, it is just a beautiful book from start to finish. Like, I can't think of another word to describe it. Beautiful feels too hollow, where beautiful doesn't do it justice. Like, it's just a fantastic read. The magic feels real, but at the same time it has that feeling of escapism, so it doesn't feel like it's too unrealistic. I feel like if you like Caraval, you will like Night Circus, and vice versa. It's kind of like they're kind of on the same sort of wavelength. Basically, it's just an impeccable read. Like, I don't want to tell you too much for spoilers, but it's a fantastic read from start to finish. And if romance isn't your thing, because it's not my thing, there is a little bit of romance in this, but there's also such a range of characters. There's not too many characters, it's hard to keep track, but there is such a range of characters that if you don't like one character storyline, there's bound to be another one that you will like and connect with. So book number 2, The Night Circus. Book number 3 is a classic book, and that is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and this cover is really pretty. Wow, look at that. All the gold foiling is all shiny. That's exciting. Rebecca is a classic gothic horror book. This is a young woman who is accompanying the lady she works for on her travels, and she meets a man on her travels and marries him very rapidly, moves back to his house with him in Manderley, which is in Cornwall, I believe, and when she moves home with him and they are living their married life together, she feels haunted by the ghost of his ex-wife who passed away, called Rebecca. This book is so good. I love a gothic horror book, and this is no exception. This is gothic horror done right. Oh my gosh, this book knows how to tell a spooky story. It's haunting, it is ghostly, it is chilling. Stereotypical gothic horror book, but done in such an effective way. I'm pretty sure that I was reading this one night in my bed on my own in my room, and I was getting like chills go down my spine. That was freaking me out so much. Daphne du Maurier really knows how to tell a story. Suspense building is incredible. Like, right up until the last page I was like frantically reading, so I was like, I need to know what happens, I need to know what happens, I need to know, because it keeps you guessing until the very end. Like, there's a lot of foreshadowing in the book, which I only realised after I finished the book, and I was like, oh, now that makes sense, and that makes sense, and that makes sense, because the foreshadowing is beautiful if you've already read the book, so you know what's coming, but if you don't know what's coming, you just think like it's a part of the plot, and then at the end you're like, oh my god, everything's fallen into place now, I get it. It's so clever how everything all ties together at the end. Oh my gosh, and it just keeps you guessing from page 1. Now, it is a classic book, but it didn't read like a classic book to me, where you can tell it was a classic book in terms of like it was written very poetically, but at the same time it read very easily, so I didn't have the struggle of reading it in like a very traditional style that I would normally have with some classic books like Jane Austen. So if you do want to read a classic book but they intimidate you, I think this is a really good one to start with. So book number 3, Rebecca. Next up is How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. Now, I am aware there's a bit of a controversy around Matt Haig, so I am talking purely about the book alone and not the author. So this book was a really clever concept, which I think I loved most of it. That's why I love it so much. It is a fantastic and unique way of telling a story spanning thousands of decades. So this is about a man who cannot age. He does not age, or if he does, it's really slow. Basically, he's lived for like hundreds or thousands of years or something insane like that, and I think it's a really clever way to tell some really significant points in history, or talk about some really significant figures in history through the eyes of one character. Our character is kind of stuck between what to do right now in his point of life, so he decides to become a history teacher, and I just think that's really cool. Like, as someone who can't age and has lived through all these fantastic points in history is teaching history to his students. It just makes it all that more real when he's talking to them. So like, he's not telling them history facts that he's learned from a book, he's telling them history that he's lived through, and I think that's so cool. Like, imagine hearing from someone about the Great Depression in the 1920s America from someone who's lived there. Obviously I know it's fantasy and it's not real, but I just think that as a concept is really clever. Through the main character's eyes we read these, like I said, significant events of history or significant people he meets. One of my favourites is when he was chatting to someone who was like, my newest book's not going to be a hit, it's going to flop, the publishers have already said it's really bad, it's not going to sell. And that person he's talking to is F. Scott Fitzgerald and his wife is Zelda Fitzgerald. I loved that bit. I was like, oh, you don't know what's coming. You have no idea. Oh my god, I loved it so much. This book felt like a warm hug to me because you get to hear from all these fantastically historical people through the eyes of a character that's set in today's time. I keep saying it's so clever, but it is so clever. What a clever way to tell a story of history than someone who can't age. He would be able to see how life has changed drastically from all those years ago, but how parts of it also hasn't changed at all. I loved it. As someone who can't age, that raises some questions and some themes that were raised in the book. So like, if you live forever, how do you spend your life? Do you do everything you ever wanted to do? Do you rush it all into a short time period and spend the rest of your life relaxing? Do you pace it across the whole span of your life? How do you live your life if you live forever? If you do live forever, what even is the meaning of life? If you can't live forever, surely you want to do everything you can before you die. But if you can live forever, do you still do all of those things you would like to do? Or do you not rush to do them because you know you've got forever to live? One question that I found really interesting is, I don't like romance, but it did raise the question like, do you fall in love if you live forever? Because whoever you end up falling in love with is bound to die before you, because you can't die, or you're dying very slowly. I can't remember if he lives forever or if he just ages really slowly, but either way he lives for like hundreds or thousands of years or something. And it just raises the question, like, is there a point in falling in love if whoever you fall in love with, you're going to end up outliving them and just end up with all this heartbreak? It did raise some really interesting thought-provoking themes, and I did find it a really interesting read, and it did really make me think even after I finished the book. Even though the book did have a lot of depth to it and it did raise a lot of these thoughts and themes with me, it was an easy read. So it's not like too deep where it's like too much to read. It was an easy read still. So next book is How to Stop Time. Next book is a contemporary romance, I think that's what the genre is, and that is Where Rainbows End by Cecilia Ahern. This is the closest thing you'll get to a romance novel that I like, because romance is just not my thing, but this is my thing. So the reason I love this book so much is because of the completely unique way it is told. This entire book is told through communication. So like emails, texts, letters, it's told entirely through that. There is no like standard written narrative. It is completely communication told, and I think that is so cool. I found it such a quick and easy read because of that, and even though everything was told through communication, I didn't find that I was disconnected from the characters. I still felt really connected to them, I still felt all their emotions, I still cried at the end of the book. So, you know, like, I don't think that the unusual telling of the story provided a barrier to connecting with the story. This is a really beautiful story, and it's about two friends who have grown up together their whole lives, and the book is about them still growing up together and growing into adults into their 30s, and it's about their lives intertwining and separating. So you see them get boyfriends and girlfriends, you see them get married, you see them break up, you see them get new boyfriends and girlfriends, you see them have kids, you see their kids becoming friends. It spans quite a journey of their two lives interconnecting and separating, and it's just a really interesting way to tell this story. And I won't tell you how it ends or anything else because of spoilers, but I think it's a book that is very heartwarming, and I would really recommend this. Even if you're not a romance fan like me, I think that this is a book that everyone can enjoy. We've got another Marcus Zusak book. It is The Book Thief. I mean, you should have seen this coming. So this is the book of a little girl called Liesel, who is 9 years old, and when she is 9, she is sent to live with her foster parents in Nazi Germany. You're basically learning about Nazi Germany through a 9-year-old girl's eyes, but it's so much more than that. This is the thing with Marcus Zusak's books, is I can tell you what they're about, but whatever they're about, it's about so much more than that. This is about family. It's about growing up in a country where you know what they're doing is wrong, but you can't say anything because if you do, your family is going to lose their lives. It's about doing what's right when you can, which can be really difficult and it can put your lives at risk at some point. It's about literature. So Liesel learns to read, and it's about how her love of books saves her, and her love of writing, how that saves her and is there for her when she really needs it. It's about loss, it's about friends, family. It's just, this book covers so many themes. It's so emotional, it's so impactful. This is, I think, Marcus Zusak's most famous work, and that is for a reason. Every word of this book is written so beautifully. Like, it reads in such an incredible and unique way. It's so emotive. It is I think, impossible to read this book and not feel anything. It will make you laugh and it will make you cry and it will rip your heart apart, but it is so worth it. This is a book I recommend to everyone. I know this video is about my favourite books, but this is one of my absolute all-time favourite books. I just think this is an absolute must read for everyone. Next up, if you have followed my bookish Instagram for a while, you will notice this book I've talked about a lot this year. It was my most anticipated read of 2021, and that is Indivisible by Daniel Aylmer. I don't even know where to begin with this book. So this book is about Mateo and Sophie. They are both American and their parents are from Mexico but have lived in America for the majority of their lives. And one day Mateo goes home to find that his parents have been taken by ICE and they are facing deportation. And it is basically about how Mateo and his sister cope with that. Mateo is, I think, only like 16 years old when it happens, and suddenly he has to manage his sister, manage his life. He's still at high school and he has to find a way to juggle high school, his sister, his family's business, all of that while still trying to fight to get his family to stay in the country. It is an incredible read. This isn't one of those books where there's a point which it gets very emotional and you cry. This book is very emotional from page one. As the book progresses, you can feel Mateo's anxiety and you can feel it heightening. You can feel how worried he is for his sister. You can feel how hard he's trying to keep it all together. The thing is, your parents being taken by ICE would be a challenge for anyone of any age, let alone at 16 when you've got like a 10-year-old sister. It's a lot to deal with. The way that this story is told is so impactful and powerful. It's just an emotional, heartbreaking read that I really cannot recommend enough. I think it's very eye-opening to deportation, immigration, ICE, all of that. Is definitely an eye-opening read. I think this book genuinely has the potential to change people's views on how immigration, deportation and ICE is viewed. This is another book where it's so beautifully told as well, where the words are very effective and the story just flows so beautifully. Like, I can't praise this book highly enough. The thing is about this book as well is it's not just about how Mateo and Sophie cope with their parents being taken. It shows the effect that their parents had on the wider community. So like, their friends are now missing the parents. They're doing everything they can to try and help the kids. It's about the fact that their parents have worked in America for so many years and business has all these customers they see time and time again who are suddenly missing their parents as well. So it's not just about how the parents are being missed by their kids, it's about how the parents have impacted the wider community and suddenly now they're gone. There's kind of a gap where their parents used to be. And what I love about this book is it doesn't just stop with the parents being taken from ICE. It does go beyond that. I won't say anything else because of spoilers, but this book covers a lot more than I first expected, and it's done in such a effective way. I know this book only came out this year. It came out in like May, I think, but it's instantly become one of my favourite reads. Next up is a very, you still got my bookmark in it from where I read it. Oh my god, Benjamin Button, that's one of my favourite musicals. I forgot I was using that as a bookmark. So, A Very Large Expanse of Sea. I actually read this book a year ago today as I'm filming this, June the 10th, so that's quite sweet that I'm filming this video now with this book in it. This book means a lot to me. So this was sent to me by my friend Ashley because I was moaning to her, because that's what I do. I was moaning to my friend Ashley. I was like, I've not read a book with a hijab character or a Muslim character in 10 years. The first book I ever read with a Muslim character was Does My Hijab Look Big in This? And I read it because it reminded me of my family in Turkey. And since then I was like, I literally can't find any more books with Muslim characters. And she was like, well, I've got a recommendation for you. So she sent me this. And oh my gosh, it was so refreshing to read a book about a Muslim character who wears a hijab. And I was like in tears throughout the book. I was like, this means so much that I can read a book with characters I can relate to my own heritage and my own family in Turkey. And it was just a beautiful read. This is about a Muslim girl called Shirin who is at high school, and it is the year after 9/11. She is used to the huge amounts of hate and racism that she is subjected to. Her escape and her frustrations she puts into music and breakdancing, which, I mean, how cool is that? What a cool hobby, breakdancing. That's amazing. I'm so here for it. She's just, you know, pottering about in life, and then along with that there is a boy who comes into her life called Ocean James, and feelings start to ensue. Now, I don't like romance, as I've said like 100 times in this video, but this is not a romance read. What I think is when Shirin and Ocean start to develop a relationship, it's not so much about the romance relationship, but it's more about how Shirin copes feeling something for a boy for the first time and how kind of she copes with that and how she finds herself through that. And especially with the cultural differences, it raises some really interesting points and some really interesting themes and things to think about within the book, which I really enjoyed. What I love about this book is it is so raw and honest, and it doesn't shy away. It is quite uncomfortable to read at times, which I think is the purpose of the book. It really shows the racism that Shirin is subjected to. It shows how that affects her and how it's affected her ability to build up relationships with other people who aren't her family. The thing about this book is it is quite impactful, and it feels like it could have been written yesterday. It's set the year after 9/11 and it was published in 2018, but it still feels as relevant and as fresh as if it was published yesterday. One more thing I want to mention about this book that I love is that it raises the theme that people should be viewing Muslims or girls who wear hijabs as people, not as, you know, a girl in a headscarf. It's more about how people should get to know the person and get to know what they're like as a person. They have much more to their personality than just this bit of fabric that's on their head. That is a theme that's continuously raised throughout the book, and it's done in such an effective manner and in such a respectful manner, and I love it. So that book is A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahira Mafi. So this is the final Markus Zusak book in this video. I told you he's my favourite author, so this is the third and final book, which is Bridge of Clay. This is a book about 5 brothers who bring each other up because their mother has passed away and their dad left them many years ago. And as the book progresses, Clay is one of the brothers and he goes to build a bridge with his dad. Spoilers, not just a physical bridge. Couldn't have seen that coming. Again, this is definitely a character book over a plot book. There is still a plot to it, but I think this is very much more a book about the characters where we learn about them, and it is stunning. This book is so underrated, but it's so good. This book came out in 2018 and I have not seen that many people talking about it at all, and I'm like, why aren't we talking about it? We need to talk about this book. This book is so good. This book especially is quite chunky, and it forces you to slow down and really digest what you're reading and really take in the words, take in what is happening to the characters, take in what you're learning. It's definitely a slow burn book, but for me, I don't think a slow burn book means a bad book. I think it means it's a book that's designed to make you think, which is what Markus Zusak is amazing at doing. His books do make you think. Even after the last page, you're left pondering about what you've just read, which I think is a sign of a fantastic book, and this is another one that does that. It's got all the typical Markus Zusak things. It's got beautiful poetic writing. It's got very complex characters with so much depth to them. You're always thinking, you're always learning more about them as you read. Even after the page has turned, I found myself wondering how the family are getting on. I really miss the Dunbar boys, and I really wish I could just hear how they're getting on now. And this has one of my all-time favourite themes in books, which is a strong family bond. I love books that have themes of strong family bonds in it. Indivisible has that, which is why that's one of my favourite books. This has that, which is why that's one of my favourite books as well. This book is all about family. As I said, you learn more about the family as you go. So you learn about the 5 Dunbar boys, you learn about their parents and their upbringings, you learn about Kavi Novak, who is one of the characters in the book. You learn about all of their pasts and their upbringings. You learn about their relationships with each other. You learn about how their past has affected their relationships. You learn so much about all of these characters, and considering there is like 5 Dunbar boys, their parents, and Kavi Novak, it doesn't ever feel like there's too many characters to keep track of. The book never feels overwhelming with all the people you meet and with what's going on. It feels just perfect. And Markus Zusak, his writing is phenomenal. He's an author I admire so much because his writing is so unique, it's so emotive. He writes in such a unique way that I think is just unmatched. He is a fantastic storyteller. The way he writes is incredible. Like, he really brings his stories and his characters to life. He writes everything he says with such emotion, and it's just, his books really, they're literary masterpieces. This is another one. This is a book about family. It's about learning about yourself. It's about grief. It's about resilience. It is emotional. It is heartbreaking. It is another literary masterpiece from Markus Zusak. Absolutely cannot recommend this enough. Markus Zusak's work, his books are just, I can't praise them highly enough. Can you tell I really love his books? There's a reason he is my all-time favourite author, and 3 books mentioned in this video. If you read any of them, you will know why. 2 books left, and I'm sure you can guess what at least one of them is, but we're not there yet. The second to last book is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. This is a really hard book for me to talk about because, again, like kind of similar to Markus Zusak, I can tell you what it's about, but it's not really just about that. It's about so much more. So this is a story of a friendship between 2 boys. One who is a very wealthy boy, and he is best friends with the son of his father's servant. It's a story of those 2 boys, and it's told against the backdrop of 1970s Afghanistan. I literally don't know how to put into words what I feel about this book. I just think this is one of those books that everyone has to read no matter what. Whether you like fantasy, whether you like romance, whether you like sci-fi, I don't care. I feel like this is a book that everyone just has to read. There is a reason this book is on every list of like 50 books you should read before you die. It is just one of those books that you just have to pick up at one point in your life. So the main character is called Amir, and what I love about him is that he's a very complex character and he's very much morally grey, where he has made mistakes when he was younger, as we all do, but some of the mistakes he's made had huge impacts that affected like the rest of the book. And as he grows older, he realises his mistakes that he made, and he realises the impact they had, and you can feel his grief and his regret and his sorrow and heartbreak through the pages, and my heart breaks for him. My heart breaks for him, my heart breaks for Hassan. This book is so emotional, so heartbreaking. I'm choking up just thinking about it. Oh my god, this is how emotional the book is. You just have to pick it up. My eyes were watering just talking about it. What's really amazing about Amir is that as he grows up, he learns from his mistakes, he grows and he changes as a person. He then does everything he can to be the best person he possibly can, to try and put things right, to try and be a good person. And it's really heartwarming to see him go through those changes and to see him grow up into this really nice young man who is completely different to what he was like as a kid. It's just a story of family, of love, of friendship, redemption. There's just so many beautiful themes within this book. Like I said, it's such an emotional and heartbreaking read, but it's such an impactful read. When I read this, I didn't expect it to have the effect on me that it did. Honestly, I remember after I finished reading it, I could not stop thinking about it. It was just there in my head all the time, and I just could not stop thinking about the book. It's the last book. I've not talked about it yet, but I talk about it quite a lot. So if you haven't guessed what it is by now, I don't know what to say to you. It is, of course, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is my all-time favourite book. How do I talk about this book in a concise way and I don't make a whole video about it? I love this book so much. But if you don't know what The Great Gatsby is about by now, where have you been? It has literally been out for 100 years. The Great Gatsby is a story about Jay Gatsby himself, and he's just this really elusive figure that no one really knows who he is, who the real Jay Gatsby is. Nick Carraway is our narrator, and he moves next door to him, and so he meets him, and it's basically just like a story of 1920s America. We meet this interesting mix of characters, so like Jay Gatsby, Daisy Buchanan, Myrtle Wilson, Tom Buchanan, George Wilson, Jordan Baker. That's all the main characters. I'm not going to list the entire book. But we see 1920s America through their eyes. We see how 1920s America affects them all differently. For example, Jay Gatsby is very wealthy, but he's deeply unhappy because he hasn't got the love of his life, Daisy Buchanan. You've got Tom and Daisy, who are very wealthy and married, but neither of them can stand each other, so they find happiness in other ways, such as Tom having an affair with Myrtle Wilson. Myrtle and George are both very poor, and so obviously their experiences in 1920s America is going to be very different to Gatsby's and Daisy's. So it's a really interesting read, and what I love about this is no matter how many times I reread it, there's always something new I get out of it. There's always something new for me to read and enjoy. I always think of different things when I read the book. It's just one of those books that to me is timeless. It means the absolute world to me. There is so much depth to it. There's so much complexity to the characters that I could literally write an essay on every single one of the characters alone and my thoughts on them, the way they're written in the book. This is just a fantastic read. Oh my goodness, it makes me cry every single time. Every time I know what's going to happen. I've read it like, what, 6 times now? I still know I'm going to cry at it on every read. It is a very emotional and heartbreaking read. I just want the best for Jay Gatsby. He deserves so much better than he gets. Myrtle Wilson, I love her so much. She's such a good character. She has so much depth to her. I say this, every single character has so much depth to them, and I love every character in this book, whether they're good or bad. But then I think one thing that this book does is the characters aren't written as good as bad. They're written as normal people. So they are normal people who do sometimes do bad things. They sometimes come across as a good guy. It's just a very thought-provoking, complex read. I love The Great Gatsby so much. If you're friends with me, you're sick of me talking about this because I literally don't shut up about this book. Great Gatsby. If you've not read it now, it's been out for 100 years. Pick up a copy and read it. I have talked so much. My throat hurts, and I still have to film another video because I've got my Fairy Loot box there to unbox. Good then. I say that, no one's making me film these videos. I actually enjoy doing them. So that is all my favourite books. Let me know if you've read any of them, and if you enjoyed them, or if you disagree with any of my opinions, or if you have any favourite books, tell me what yours are. I just like to have a good chat. Let's just have a chat, okay? Talk to me on any form of social media you like about your favourite books, about my favourite books, just books in general. Let's talk books. I am going to go get a drink and film my Fairy Loot unboxing video. I am sure I will see you all very soon. I hope you're all happy, I hope you're all healthy, happy reading, lots of love, and bye!